morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, and today is a good day, because we get to talk about a new GX. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally have a translation. We have a clear picture of Greninja GX, a Pokemon we've been expecting for a little while, that is now out in the wild. Huge thank you to Rappelmann TCG, Mr. David Hockman himself, for providing us with a translation. Now, first of all, it is a water Pokemon, which is great, because it means you get access to Brooklet Hill to search out those basic water Pokemon, or fighting, but we're mainly going water here. And it means you have access to Aqua Patch, so you can attach a water energy from your discard to one of your benched water Pokemon. Being a water Pokemon means you are hitting weakness against stuff like Volcanion, and with stuff like Duskmane Necrozma coming out, that means that Metal is likely to be getting better in the near future, which means we're going to need some fire Pokemon to counter them, which means we're going to need some water Pokemon to counter the fire Pokemon that are countering the Metal Pokemon. 230 HP is very low for a Stage 2, it's down there with Gardevoir, but you can't have it all, and as we're going to see, you still have some advantages here anyway. And a retreat cost of 2 is first of all quite high. It's not a great retreat cost. But also, Greninja's really fast in the video games. And the Greninja from Breakpoint that people have been using has free retreat, which makes sense. Why does this have a retreat cost of 2? I don't understand it. Weakness to grass could be a bit of a pain with Golisopod running around at the moment, and although it's not seeing a huge amount of play at the moment, there is always every possibility Tapu Bulu could get big again. Both of those will destroy Greninja, especially as it's got 230 HP. Now, the ability here is as a lot of people predicted, and it makes perfect sense. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may put free damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. How could we possibly have foreseen this ability? Well, the thing is, this is the exact same ability as Crobat from Phantom Forces, which of course is relevant because Frogadier had the exact same ability as Golbat from Phantom Forces. So now you evolve up into Frogadier and you get to put 2 damage counters somewhere on the field. You further evolve up into Greninja and you get to put another 3 damage counters somewhere on the field. Ladies and gentlemen, the bats are back, but now they're frogs. And let's be clear about this. Dropping 3 damage counters is awesome. You do this twice and 60 HP Pokemon like Routes and Zorua, that are seeing a lot of play at the moment, they go straight down. It means that these weaker attacks add up super quickly, which is really nice. It means that your opponent all of a sudden has to think really carefully before they go and bench their Pokemon. So let's say, for argument's sake, if you've got 2 Frogadier sitting on the bench, your opponent knows that next turn you might evolve them and drop 6 damage counters, which means they can't just bench a Routes. They really have to bench 2 at once and expect both of them to be KO'd. And that, ladies and gentlemen, really is a lot of fun. For you, not for your opponent. The thing is, though, that before, when we had Golbat and Crobat, they were very much played with Landorus. Landorus is Hammerhead, 30 to the active, 30 to the bench. Spread damage around, and you then drop the bats to do extra damage while you spread damage around. Low energy, you are off. There is absolutely a possibility that Buzzwole, and I know some people are going to try this, could be played the same as this nowadays. You drop your Buzzwole, start doing Jet Punch while you pop damage counters around using both your Frogadier and your Greninja. And let's face it, we've already got a whole bunch of ways to add damage to this Jet Punch. We've already got Regirock EX, adds 10 damage. Strong Energy adds 20 damage. Choice Band adds 30 damage to an EX or a GX. And by the time Greninja comes around, we're going to have Diancie Prism Star as well, which is like a double Regirock. It adds 20 damage. This starts making Jet Punch a little bit silly, although you will have to control your bench with stuff like Regirock and Diancie and then throwing in these frogs as well. You're going to have to be a little bit careful with your bench. I mean, for the ability alone, this should see play. Now, I've said it's just like Crobat. The thing to remember is, Crobat was a single prize Pokemon with free retreat. This is a GX that gives up 2 prizes and has quite a high retreat. But you can reuse these abilities with stuff like Super Scoop Up and Ace Roller, and every time you pick up a Greninja that gives you an extra Frogadier, 2 damage counters, and an extra Greninja, 3 damage counters. This is going to be an ability people will play. You could even see it in expanded with something like Seismitoad EX, which of course was played back in a day with Golbat and Crobat. And then we get to the main attack. 1 water, 2 colorless energy, 110 damage. You may shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. Now, we've seen attacks like this before, and most recently we saw it on Wimpod, but on this particular Pokemon, it's awesome. Now, one important thing here is we are going to have to wait for an official translation. What David has said, and I believe him on this, is that you may shuffle it back into your deck, but you don't have to. This makes a big difference. Being forced to shuffle it in is not as good as being able to shuffle it in, but not having any pressure to do so. As with all of these, we're going to have to wait for an official translation before we know for absolute certain. But there's many, many good things about this ability. You get to save yourself from being KO'd. 230 damage is quite a lot to hit, unless you're being hit for weakness, which means a lot of the time you won't be one-hit KO'd. Even something like a Duskmane Necrozma is going to need to add damage with something like a Choice Band in order to go and get a KO. And then, of course, it's not just about avoiding KOs and healing yourself here. Every time you shuffle a Greninja back into your deck, that gives you 1 more Frogadier and 1 more Greninja to use during the game to drop extra damage. It means you don't have to use something like Super Scoop Up or Ace Roller to reuse Greninja. It means you can just drop it and go. This is a huge advantage. A lot of the time these shuffle back into your deck attacks aren't great, but here the fact that you've got these abilities that you want to reuse really does make this absolutely brilliant. And even the damage is good here. So at first we look at 110 and go, well, it's alright, it's not great. But then, of course, you add in 1 Greninja ability and a Choice Band, and all of a sudden you're now hitting 170, and there's a KO on Tapu Lele. Add in Frogadier's ability as well, and then you're hitting 190, that's a KO on a Buzzwole. If you use Frogadier's ability twice, that's 210, and gets a KO on a Zoroark. And you're not always going to have 2 Frogadiers and 1 Greninja plus a Choice Band in one turn. But you don't always need them. You don't need one-hit KOs because the chances are you're not going to be one-hit KO'd, so you can then just use Greninja's attack to shuffle back into the deck, and then heal all the damage that was done to you. Of course, at this stage, we do need to mention the energy cost. It's a water and 2 colorless. Now, you can use double colorless energy here, and the fact that you are going to shuffle in means that you can just attach the double colorless energy, immediately shuffle in, and then you're not going to have to worry about something like an enhanced hammer ruining your day. That's very nice. And you can always use Aqua Patch here to get this going in a single turn. It really depends on how much room you have in the deck. The thing is, you're not always going to be able to get this every turn. What would be ideal is if every turn you did 110 and shuffled in, while dropping damage counters left, right and centre. The reality is, that's not always going to be possible. But I should mention here that when you have to pop your Greninja back into your deck, they're a really fun Pokemon you can chuck into the active. You can put a Glaceon in the active to stop your opponent's EXs or GXs having abilities. Or you could just put a Wobbuffet in the active, at least until it rotates, and then none of your opponent's Pokemon have abilities. You could even play a deck with Glaceon and Greninja here, so you've got Glaceon there for ability locking and cheap wins, but Greninja comes in for those games that Glaceon cannot handle by itself. I just love the ability of having Greninja in the active, and then you put Glaceon active at the end of your turn, so you get abilities all through your turn, but your opponent doesn't. The thing is, as much as I like the ability and the main attack here, I'm just not a fan of this GX attack. 1 water, 2 colourless energy, 130 to one of your opponent's bench. Again, the translation is important here. It very much seems like it's only to the bench, think Entei GX but 20 less damage. And that means you can't hit the active for extra damage because of course your main attack only does 110. Sometimes you will want to do 130. It's fine. Of course, the synergy here works beautifully, because you drop damage counters with Frogadier and Greninja, then you hit the bench to finish them off. I love the synergy this card has as a whole, but I think this is a very underwhelming GX attack. Good news, it hits 130, not 120, so stuff like Mewtwo from Evolutions, for instance, will be KO'd, which I suppose is an advantage, but generally speaking, there are much, much better GX attacks out there. That isn't to say it's not going to be useful, and that isn't to say there aren't going to be times when you really want to hit 130 to the bench, take that KO without having to find a Guzma, but generally speaking, it's not as good as most GX attacks. I do love the synergy that this card has as a whole. Dropping damage counters, then you shuffle back in so you can reuse those abilities, and you've got a GX attack that hits the bench to finish off those Pokemon that were hit using your abilities. I do like it. And I think the ability is great, and we know the ability is great, because it was great when Crobat had it. Why would it not be great on a Pokemon that's a bit bulkier? I suppose it gives up 2 prizes and has a retreat cost, but let's ignore that for the minute. It's a good ability. And I love the main attack. And I think if you can cycle the main attack every turn, constantly doing 110 while dropping damage counters and healing every turn, so your opponent is forced into getting a one-hit KO, I think it could work. But it's going to take a lot to get that rolling, and I don't like the GX attacks. But I'm still going to give this 4 Wassies. And I don't think that's going to make everybody happy. But you know what? I've seen people being really positive about this card already. And I've seen people being really negative. But I'm still giving it 4 Wassies, because it's my video and I can do it if I like, Dad. Even if Greninja isn't a deck by itself, this ability seems like it's made for something like a Buzzwole. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you guys. Tell me what you think about this card. If I've been too generous, let me know. If I've been too mean, let me know. Go nuts, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, you can do so by going to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.